Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Mug Up with BBNC podcast. My name is Carmel. This is the final episode from our special series recorded in Bristol Bay. If you haven't already, we encourage you to check out the first 2 episodes. In this special video episode, I sit down with shareholder author Barbara Jacko Atwater as she shares her journey as a writer, the inspiration behind her books, and reads 2 of her Dena'ina children's stories. Be sure to watch the full video on YouTube or Spotify to experience Barbara's storytelling. We hope you enjoy the episode.
My name is Barbara Jacko Atwater. I'm the daughter of George and Dolly Jacko. My mother's maiden name was Foss. Her parents were Sophie and Samuel Baird Foss. My dad's parents were Gilly Jacko and Elma Jensen Jacko. And yeah.
And where are we today?
We're in Pedro Bay in our summer home in Pedro Bay, Alaska.
And can you tell us about the books you've written and how you were inspired to write them?
Okay, I have to talk a little bit about Walter's story first because Walter Johnson is my great uncle. He's my dad's uncle. And had been gathering a lot of information about the village because I was very curious about who people were, and we had a lot of different people travel through here and live here, and as you know, it's a kind of a mixed community, but we're basically Dena'ina. We all have some Dena'ina blood, mostly, and I didn't know what I was going to do with all the material that I was gathering, and one day I was listening to my Uncle Walter telling stories. He was a wonderful storyteller, and I thought maybe I could do it through his life story. Took a little bit of talking him into it, but so that's what this is. Basically, it's the history of the village told through the life story of Walter, how he grew up here, and his life experiences. And while I was doing the research to do this, he would tell us stories. He would stop talking about himself and tell us these amazing stories. And I just kept thinking that, I really wanted to do something with these. So I picked one, and this was the first one. I started working on it. And as I was working on it, I'd keep going to Ethan and asking him, what do you think, because he was always there. I homeschooled him, so he was always with me when I was doing my research with Walter. And finally I said, won't we just do it together? And so we did, and it's worked out wonderfully. We did this one, How Raven Got His Crooked Nose, and then we did Chia and the Foxman. And they're both stories told to us by my great uncle Walter.
That's amazing. And Ethan is your son?
Ethan is my son, yes.
Mm-hmm. Barbara, can you talk about the importance of sharing culture through these stories and sharing traditions and what lessons are being passed on through them?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I think story is so important for anybody and everybody, and I'm a retired teacher. I just think reading is so important, and you learn so much through story. And when Walter told us these stories, I didn't grow up with them, unfortunately. I did not grow up with hearing these stories. My parents were, neither of them spoke Dena'ina. My dad could understand it, but my mother did not. And so we didn't have that traditional upbringing. And so when I heard these stories, and Walter grew up with that, he grew up in almost as an only child. He wasn't an only child, but because he was so much younger than his other siblings, his mother, I have come to understand that she devoted her last years to him, her last child, and teaching him through this telling of the stories and just the culture and the language. And she would only speak Dena'ina to him, but she was a bilingual person. But he said she would not speak any other language to him. And she told him the stories in Dena'ina. So that's just, to me, that's so powerful, just so powerful. And the stories just are so rich. In these stories, every story has a history to it. They're told. Oh my gosh, I think this story was recorded in Koyakan by someone in 1940.
Wow.
It's basically the same story, but the stories are always told. They're told to either teach something or they're told to entertain. But they're always they kind of, the stories can be changed a bit. That's why Walter told us. I thought that was so wise of him to tell us that. Tell the stories in your own way. And so we always say that, tell people that, and we try to encourage young people to collect stories from their family. Even, it doesn't have to be Indigenous people, everybody. You have stories in your families, and, find those stories and tell them and retell them. So.
What's the best way you think youth can do that? I'm sure you not growing up hearing those stories was a lot of inspiration for you to start telling them.
I think part of it too, though, was I was a story reader. I was a reader. And I know there are, my siblings and we were all readers. We just loved to read. We grew up without, a whole lot of entertainment. And so that was our entertainment. And unfortunately, I think many kids are not story readers or readers. And so that's why I like going into schools and reading the stories and trying to encourage kids, the importance of these. And when we go to tell the stories, read the stories, the kids just love them. I mean, they just get so excited and they just love them. And so I think it's just, I don't know, there needs to be, we just need to keep on keeping on, I guess, encouraging kids to read and encouraging adults to read to and with kids all the time. I read this one guy was talking about, I forget what he was talking about, but he said, buy a book and pass it on. And so, yeah.
That's great.
We need to encourage as much as we can reading.
Yeah.
I will read How Raven Got His Crooked Nose. Slow down, child, said grandmother. It is better to take your time to do things right. Do you know the story of how Julian the raven got his crooked nose? Granddaughter shook her head. No, then sit, and I will tell you a Sukdu. And a Sukdu is a story. Once Julian had a very straight nose. He thought it was quite handsome. He was able to do many things with his straight nose. But Julian was a trickster, and sometimes he did things that were not wise. Sometimes they got him in trouble. One day, Julian sat above a little creek. Things had not gone as planned. Now he was suffering from a bad injury. How long have I been sitting here? Julian ruffled his feathers. He was beginning to feel better. Then Julian remembered. My nose, my poor nose, what am I to do? But how did Julian lose his nose? Asked granddaughter. He would never say, my dear. Maybe he was too embarrassed, answered grandmother. Julian noticed the birch bark he sat in. He peeled off a curly piece of bark and placed it where his nose had been. When he really thought about it, Julian did know where his nose was. Even though he often acted silly, Julian had a way of knowing things. He had special powers. Yes, he knew where his nose was, but how would he get it back? The bubbling creek below Julian flowed into a lake. A small village was nestled on the hillside above it. While Julian was thinking, a cheetah from the village walked to the beach to gather driftwood for her fire. As she reached for a piece of wood, she noticed something. Yadadi? What is it? Brushing off the sand, she examined Julian's nose. This will make a good tool. And she tucked it into her alkisa, or her purse or bag. Cheetah found Julian's nose useful for many things. She used it to clean the sides of a bowl of nivagi, her favorite dessert. She used it to scrape her squirrel skins to make them soft and clean, ready for sewing. She used it to take the scales off salmon before she filleted them. Yes, Julian's nose was a wonderful tool. Cheetah used it so often that it was beginning to look a bit worn. Julian knew Chia had his nose, but he didn't know where she kept it. He had to find a way to get into Cheetah's home to get his nose back. How will I do that? Julian ruffled his feathers and made a decision. He needed to be in human form. With his special powers, he did just that. What else can Julian do? Asked granddaughter. You will see, said grandmother. Next, Julian found a beach near the village. He drew pictures in the sand, one, then another, and another, and another. Using his powers, Julian spoke to his drawings. Be alive! A breeze rippled over the drawings and made them rounded and lifelike. Eyes opened, fingers moved, arms lifted, knees bent. They murmured to each other. Then all at once they stood upright, and Julian called to them, Follow me. The group walked toward the village. Make lots of noise. Julian wanted to scare the villagers into running away. It worked. They did scare the villagers away. Cheetah ran away too. Julian knew he did not have much time, for his magic did not last long. His sand drawings would disappear soon and the villagers would return. He looked near the bowl of Nivagi. His nose was not there. He looked on the table with the salmon fillets. His nose was not there. He looked in the pile of squirrel skins. His nose was not there. As Julian rushed around the house, his magic began to run out. Where was his nose? The villagers were returning. Cheetah was close. At last, Julian spotted the Alkisa. Inside, he found his nose. Just in time, Julian jammed it back onto his face and flew away. Julian was so happy to have his nose back. Well, Julian got his nose back, but if you look carefully, you will notice something a little different. It had become soft and worn from Cheetah's use. Because he was hurrying, Julian did not notice, and because of his rush, he jammed it back on without care. This is why Julian has a crooked nose. It is always best to take our time and do things right. We may not get a chance to fix our mistakes, said grandmother. Just look at Julian. He still lives with a crooked nose. Do quid yoke. And that is what happened. When we read the book, we do school events and things, and let the kids ask questions, and that's always really fun. This one, we call it a fable. We talk about what a fable is, and then the children will particularly listen for what they're learning, what lessons they're learning. And it tells the lesson in the back, the obvious lesson. But we were reading to a preschool class once, and this little girl raised her hand, and when we asked, what did you learn from this? And she said, well, Raven didn't take care of himself. And no one else had ever talked about that, that Raven had hurt himself very badly, and he didn't take care of himself, and that was really an important lesson. I thought that was really, really, really neat. The little preschool girl to come up with that. So, yeah, that's really fun.
Very cool. If somebody is interested in getting this book for their kids, where can they find it?
They're available at Tidal Wave. You can order them on Amazon, and we also send mail books.
Okay.
Yeah, we're able to do that. So this is Chia and the Foxman. It's an Alaskan Dena'ina fable. Just a little about the story. It's a little different. Foxman is not a fox. It's a fox story, and the fox is a very elusive creature in Dena'ina lore. It's not a very often told, and he has a different role to play than most traditional indigenous stories about fox. He's not the wily fox. It's a whole different role. He's mysterious. So, and it's a more serious story, this book is. Talks about orphans, being hungry and things like that. So it's a serious book. My name is Chia. I'm an orphan. My parents died when I was young, but I still remember Sukdu time in the evenings. The stories they told me taught lessons about life, about how to behave and what is right. Well, one day I learned about that, how sometimes it can be hard to do the right thing. I will tell you my Sukdu. With no family to care for me, I went to live in the kunkka of a rich man in our village. Nestled into a hillside above a lake, our village looked safe and snug, but things were not good there. Even though it was early spring, winter lingered. Our hunters went out every day, but returned with nothing. We ice fished, but the hooks came up empty. Our food caches and cellars were bare, and so, Diishchin, I was hungry. Even with my hunger, I had chores to do. I carried firewood to help us keep us warm. I hauled water from the lake in birch bark buckets. I fed the dogs a salmon bone with bits of dried fish on it. The dogs howled mournfully at night, reminding us of how hungry we were. After a long day filled with many chores and no food, I was tired. I crawled into bed and fell quickly asleep. Suddenly, I was awakened by a loud yell. "Iji, Chia, it is cold," cried the rich man. "Fix the door." A storm had blown it open. Wind and snow were rushing into the kunkka. I closed the door, fixed the latch, and went back to sleep. Soon the rich man's voice woke me again. "Iji, Chia, the door." A second time I fixed the latch and wearily went back to bed. A third time the rich man's shouts woke me. "Iji, Chia, fix the door." I sat up and stared at the open doorway. Something was happening. This time I pulled on my boots, my parka, and my mittens, and I ran outside. I ran across the frozen lake right into the storm. I ran through the forest directly into the wind. I ran up the mountainside straight into the blowing snow. Tink, tink, tink. High up on the mountain, I heard something. At first it was faint. Then it grew louder and louder as I neared the glacier. As I got closer, I saw someone. It was Foxman. He was chopping away at the glacier with his duguli. Chips of ice got caught up by the wind and carried straight down to our village. I watched in wonder, trying to decide what to do. Finally, I had an idea. I snuck up behind Foxman. He didn't see me. The clouds of snow hid my sneaking figure. He didn't hear me. The stormy wind drowned out my creeping footsteps. He did not know I was coming. He just kept chopping away at the glacier with his duguli. I crept up closer and closer until I was right behind him. He raised the duguli up over his head, and then I jerked it out of his hand. Foxman went sprawling into the snow. I ran away as fast as I could. Down the mountain, through the forest, across the lake, and back to the kunkka. I fastened the door latch and tucked the duguli under my sleeping mat. No more wind, no more snow. Now the rich man couldn't complain anymore. Finally, I would be able to sleep. But my sleep was interrupted again. Foxman was in my dreams. I ran down the mountain and he was the glacier blowing snow at me. I ran through the forest and he was the trees tangling me in branches. I ran across the frozen lake and he was the ice cracking beneath me. I woke in a sweat to find Foxman standing beside my bed. "Please don't hurt me," I cried. He tilted his head to the side. "Chia, Danashten, you stole from me." This was true, but strangely, he did not seem angry. I stammered, "You were causing the storm which was making our lives more difficult." Foxman just stared at me. "I need my duguli back." I stood up in a rush. "I'm tired and hungry and I needed the storm to stop." Foxman turned his head toward the door and spoke softly. "I have work to do." Foxman looked at me in the eye and I realized what I had done was wrong. "I'm sorry. I did steal your duguli," I said, pulling it out and handing it to him. "I was wrong." Foxman took the duguli and said, "Chinan, Chia, things will now get better for you." I watched him walk around the kunkka, dragging his daguli behind him. He made a circle in the snow all the way around it and then disappeared into the night. I went inside, fastened the latch, and fell into an exhausted sleep. This time, Foxman did not chase me in my dreams. When I woke, all was quiet. The wind had stopped howling, the snow had stopped falling, the rich man was sleeping quietly. It was just as Foxman had promised. Things got better. The weather warmed up, the hunters returned with rabbit and spruce hen. The fish started biting again. We were not so hungry anymore. Our village was a happier place. Even the rich man was kinder to me. I am still Chia. I still live in the home of the rich man, but my life is better, just as Foxman promised. I have not seen Foxman since that night, but sometimes I see a faint outline of his circle around the kunkka. Sometimes I think I see him in the forest, and there are times when I can almost hear his daguli chopping away at the glacier. On that night when I stole from Foxman, I learned that the elders were right when they taught us doing the right thing isn't always easy, but doing the right thing is always best. Doc Quidjuk, and that
was great. What are some of the questions that kids typically ask with this book?
It's a funny one is they'll ask if Foxman is still out there.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what do you say?
We'll say, well, we don't know. We like to leave the mystery, there's always a little bit of mystery. Yeah. One of the questions is what is this here? Kids are curious, and so we'll have a little guessing game as to what is that he's wearing, and we tell them it's an essential tool, and it's all the kids, most people have one. What it is it's a drinking tube. Because they don't have cups with them to carry around, and they drink. They drink usually from streams and the lakes, and so one boy asked us, "So does it clean the water?" Because the thought of doing that today is most of the kids we read to are in cities, or they're not. You don't just go and drink the water, so they thought it purified the water. It's usually made with a bone.
Okay.
A drinking tube, yeah. So.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This was really special. Chia and Barbara, for your time and taking the time to share your stories with us.
I was glad to do it.
We share more than cultures, stories, and purpose. We share joy. A force that grows stronger when we gather, and together we are home.